Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. So Drew Carrell, thank you so much for joining us for the Mike Litton Experience. As we talked about before, we believe that everybody has a story, including you, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start at the very beginning of your life. Where were you born?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Mike. Where was I born? I was born in Minden, Ontario, 1986. Minden, Ontario is a small town. It's about 3 hours north of Toronto. When I was born there, I believe the population was 3,000. We didn't even have our own school. I actually had to school bus to the town neighboring us to go to high school in Halliburton.
So a small town.
Yeah, very small town.
So did you grow up there?
I did. Yeah, I was there until I was 18 years old.
Okay. So what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
Favorite thing about growing up there? Well, that's an interesting question. I would say in retrospect, like looking back, I don't know at the time, I definitely can't say that I thought of this, but looking back, what I would say is that I really liked the small town feel and how personable it was, right? It's very different. I've lived in a lot of cities since then, and nothing beats the small town, like driving through town, waving and seeing your neighbor, stopping at the store and knowing the people by name, having your coffee order ready for you type of thing.
Right.
There was nothing better than that. And both of my parents owned businesses in that town as well. So my father owned a body shop and my mother ran a daycare out of our house. So needless to say, they knew everybody in the town.
Absolutely.
And I definitely miss that.
So my dad's been a body man for 60 years. I didn't know we had that in common.
That's so funny. Yeah. Owns an auto body shop. Yeah. And his entire life, my grandfather started at GM until he saved himself enough money to open his own shop.
That's cool, man. What a great story. So you graduate from high school. Then where do you go?
Yes. So I didn't want to go to university. Not really sure why. As a young kid, I was just very much against it. I couldn't understand why everybody would go into all of this debt when they didn't even know what they wanted to do with their lives.
Yeah, good point.
Figure out what I want to do first before making that investment. Not that I ever did. But that was my thought at the time. So what I did was during high school, I worked at a grocery store. And I worked in the meat department. So I would actually cut meat through the summers and whatnot, and help clean up after schools during the school year. And when I graduated, what I found out, because I was going through my options, what to do next, and there was obviously trade school. And one of the trade schools was to become a retail meat cutter.
Awesome.
And I was like, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So I was kind of looking at the requirements, and there was only 4,000 like block hours is what they call it. So time on the block cutting meat. You'd only need 4,000 of practical, and then a 3-month like in school portion. And so I was looking at this and I was like, well, that's interesting. Over the last few years, like I've been cutting meat. I have my 4,000 hours already. And this is at the graduation of grade 12. So I graduated, I signed up for the schooling. I went and did the schooling that summer. So at the end, after graduating high school, the end of that summer, I was a fully licensed retail meat cutter, which was kind of interesting. And but it was great because it was basically a guaranteed job. Everywhere always needs a meat cutter, and the money was good. I remember at the time I was making $20 an hour when I was 18 years old, which at the time was pretty good. This is a couple of years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that was my ticket. That was my ticket into the small town. So I did that. I moved to a city nearby where most of my friends actually went to university. Hung out with them in their dorm rooms and kind of bounced around jobs cutting meat.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So how long did you cut meat? For how many years?
Yeah. So great question. 10 years, over 10 years cutting meat. So I probably started when I was 15 or 16.
Mhm.
When I was 28, as a meat cutter, I moved to Ottawa. And when I was
Okay.
in Ottawa, there was a small grocery chain. They had 10 stores at the time, very much like Whole Foods. So a very organic, fresh meat type of grocery store. And I got in
Yeah.
there and I was promoted to some of their new store builds to be the meat managers. So I was meat manager for quite some time. I don't know if you'd call me a meat cutter when you're a manager. Like only it's kind of a joke. You don't cut a lot of meat as a manager, but
You do when you have to.
yeah, I know. I remember getting asked when the company expanded to Southern Ontario. They asked me to go down and open some stores with them, and I was promoted to the retail specialist. So I was the meat specialist for the district of stores. And then when I was 28 years old, I was given my first grocery store. So I would
Wow.
say, yeah, I would say at 28 was when my meat cutting days were over. I was essentially just running a store at that point.
There you go. So I
Yeah,
actually worked in grocery, and
cool.
I used to the truck drivers went on strike one summer,
Yeah,
and all the managers had to leave, and I ended up cleaning the meat department every day. So every night I'd come in the middle of the night, and I would clean it all up and get it all spick and span for them
that's
to
so
come to
funny.
work the next day. So I never cut any meat, but I certainly cleaned the floors.
Yeah, you got the worst job of it all, cleaning the
Yeah.
floors and cleaning out the bone cans.
Yeah, it really, to be honest with you, it was humbling, right? Because it's one of those things. It's the one job nobody wants, right? And I ended up with it. Yeah. So it was crazy. So it
That's
was
so
fun though. I
funny.
mean, I learned a lot, and all that. And like you said, I was 18 years old. I was making a bunch of money, making way more than any other 18-year-old was making at the time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was quite an experience. So you're running a meat department, and how long did you do that?
It was first a few years. I think I was a meat manager for 5 years or so, meat specialist for a couple of years, and then a grocery manager or a store manager for a few years. Trying to
How
walk
was
this
the
back
store manager
now.
gig?
Store manager gig was interesting. It was definitely a pivotal moment for me. It was really interesting going from having no interest in management to becoming a meat manager and having a team like a department of 13 people to
Yeah,
becoming a store manager when you have 97 employees.
like
Like
culture shock, right?
yeah, that's a huge culture shock. But it was amazing. I loved it. I
Awesome.
loved having a team of people working for me. I took management and leadership very, very seriously. I was also the youngest store manager in the company, so
Yeah.
it was very motivating. That very much motivated me to be the best in what I did. So I did that for about 4 years, I want to say ish, and then that's kind of where the crisis of conscience normally comes for most entrepreneurs. I think when you get to a point where you're making decent money, but you're sitting at home going, "Well, I just worked another 70-hour week.
Yeah.
I wonder if I put in 70 hours for something that I want for
Right.
myself, what would the payoff be for that?" And
Yeah.
that's definitely where I got. Having almost 100 employees, managing at the time I was in a very small store, but the
Mhm.
store was doing over 13. It was doing $250,000 a week, so it was doing
Wow.
$13 million a year.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
so it's interesting. People like to talk about statistics and whatnot when they don't fully understand them. But the stat that I had in my head was 50% of small businesses go out of business. So I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty easy then. All I need to do is be in the 51 percentile to
Right.
be a successful business owner, right?
Right.
Like I don't look at that as a negative thing. That to me, that looks like a massive opportunity. Now, if I only have to be in the 51st percentile to be successful as a business owner, I already have 100 employees that I'm managing. I'm
Right.
managing over $13 million a year in an industry with a gross margin of 2.3%.
Right.
So the margins don't get any tighter than that.
They're slim, baby.
Right. And so then I'm going, well, then why the hell have I not done this yet? Like
Yeah.
I must be in the 51 percentile. if I have these things under my belt. If this is based off every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's registered in LLC, 50% of them are successful, I must be a part of that group. And that's kind of what pushed me over the edge, thinking like that, and kind of being overworked, I think, at the time, into finally leaving retail and starting my own company.
Did you ever sit down? I did, and that's why I'm asking. Did you ever sit down when you were in management and think, I worked 70 hours this week and I made this much, which translated to $4 an hour. This isn't working for me, right? Or I mean, some number right and you look at the number and you're just kind of like, okay.
Yeah. Well, my company had that beat. 50% of your salary was in bonus. So if you're to ever dare tease yourself with such a thought experiment, my district's response would essentially just be, well, if you hit bonus, you'd be making double that.
Yeah.
So that would be the response to everything. But they made damn sure that you weren't going to hit bonus.
Yeah, no kidding, man. That's wild. So you have that crisis of conscience. You decide to go into business for yourself. By the way, I love the mentality of 50%, right? The glass is half full kind of thing, right? Yeah. You've learned on the company, the company's taught you a ton about management, a ton about business, a ton about how to run it and do it right? Yeah. And now it's time to take that and your energy and your desire and go off and do something that is for you and for your family. That's just an amazing way to look at it, because there are a lot of people out there, and some of them may be listening to this podcast, that actually think the other way, right? Yeah. And that's something that they need to work on. That's something that they need to look deep inside and figure out where that comes from and figure out a way to fix it, right? Yeah. If they're going to be successful is what I'm getting at. So we're all about inspiring and motivating people. And we know that your story is going to inspire and motivate people that connect with you, right? Like they may have a dad that had a body shop like ours did, right? Yeah. They may have been in the grocery business like we were. They may have, cleaned the meat room floor. I don't think I've ever told anybody that before, right? That's so funny. But they may have actually cleaned the meat department before, that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So you make the decision to take the leap. Tell us how that comes about.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things. So I think I definitely spent a lot of time doing thought experiments on numbers. So that 50% definitely played a large part into it. I think too, what people should think through more, and I am not I'm against university or I'm against post-secondary or anything like that. I think that it's absolutely right for some people and absolutely not for others. But absolutely. I think what people need to do is not just take random social media headlines as truth, right? Yeah. So everybody's scared that about 50% of businesses failing. Well, no, there's a positive side to that. But let's look at the other side. Play this experiment as if you're in high school. I can leave high school, become an entrepreneur with a 50% success rate. Or I could apply to universities. I could then put in the work to pass university and get a degree, and then hope that degree actually gets me a job. So what if you play that through? What if you say only 80% of people that apply for university actually go to university? So now, just graduating high school from day one, only 8 out of 10 people are there. Right. Now let's say 75% of them graduate, which I think I'm being incredibly gracious at that point.
I think so too.
So now only 6 out of that original 10 have now graduated with the degree. And now what percentage of people with the degree actually get a job with that degree?
With that degree in that specialty, right?
Right, is less than half. Right. So 3 out of 10 people that chose the university route actually it was fruitful for them, or 55 out of 10 for entrepreneurs. So it's just kind of funny. People don't look at it all the way through and go, well, actually, starting your own business is the easier path.
Can I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. Find that people don't look hard enough?
In regards to what specifically?
In regards to finding a positive, right?
Yes.
I believe, and I think you do too, or I believe you do, that if you look hard enough at any situation, you can find a positive. That's what you did when you did these numbers.
Yeah. And I think personally that is the number one trait of being a successful entrepreneur, is to be able to find that positive. Because honestly, I think that's what our job is. That's all it is. I don't know about you. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I wake up every morning to 40 Slack messages and emails
Mm-hmm.
of everybody on my team and every one of my clients, it seems like, complaining about something being broken.
Mm-hmm.
I then get to spend my day fixing everything that's broken until I get to wake up tomorrow to find out what's broken again before I get to fix it. My entire job is reframing situations for my employees so that they stay motivated, and then fixing functional issues within my company, and so that the wheels don't fall off. That's it. That's
I
it.
hope everybody's listening to this. I hope they're listening to this, and I hope they're taking note, because that's really what this is about, right? I owned one of the largest real estate companies in North America, okay, for 18 years. And I did the exact same thing. I woke up every morning and I had tons of messages. I had tons of issues. I had tons of challenges. I had tons of things that were flying at me all the time. And you've got to be able to maintain that mindset of a problem solver, right? But you've also got to be able to maintain the mindset of somebody who is figuring out a way to make it a positive, right? Because to a lot of people, it looks like Armageddon, right? To a lot of people, they look at it and it's the end of the world. And it's a printer that doesn't work, right? Or it's, you know what I'm saying? We called them coffee pot issues, right?
Yeah.
They just are, and it was unbelievable to me how many people did not look at it in terms of, okay, how do we solve it and then move on so that we're productive with the rest of our day? Their day just stopped. Like they just stopped, and they couldn't do anything or see any way to do anything until somebody came in like you or like me and solved it, right? And then we ask them a question. So what are you going to do with the rest of your day? And then they look at you like a deer in the headlights, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's, you know, this is something that I think is incredibly important. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted you to be a guest on here. I know for a fact that there are people out there, Drew, that need to hear your story and need to hear the way that you tackle things, because you have such a can-do attitude. I mean, you brought me into Leadzolo because of your can-do attitude. Like I literally, I went to one of your, you don't know this, but I went to one of your webinars.
Cool.
And I left thinking, I have got to be in business with this guy. I've got to figure out a way. And I did. It took me a couple of months, but I figured out a way to get into business with you because of your can-do attitude, man. You completely won me over. And
That's
awesome.
And
I felt, and I told Jason this too. I felt this sort of kindred spirit about you. Like we connected, man. And you and I had never talked face to face. It was just the way that you did what you did, and the way you do what you do, the approach that you bring to it. You with me?
Yeah.
And it really resonated with me. And that's one of the reasons why we're working together. By the way, full disclosure, I am a client of yours. Right? I'm also a huge fan, right? So you decide to take the leap. You decide to get into it. You decide to give it everything you've got, right? Take us through that mentality. So we've got the 51% thing. So take us through the next steps. What happened next once you made the decision and you went forward?
Sure. Well, it was definitely impulsive, I will say, when I finally did make the decision, because I just literally got to a point where I couldn't imagine working any more than I was. Right. I remember sitting on the porch with a scotch in hand, going, I need to figure out what I'm meant to do, because I'm stressed. I'm not happy with this. Right. I know I need to make a change, but I don't have any space. I don't have any time to even think through what the right choice would be.
Right, because you're running like this, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't have any time to like critically think about anything. I spend every moment of every day in this firefighter mode, right? I'm just reacting to shit all day long. So I went to work the next day and I gave my notice, and that was that. I was just said, this was it. I had to have the confidence in myself that I would figure something out.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the confidence in my resume that I could pick up another job. I had a little bit of money in a savings account, not a lot, but it was just like, I need to get away from this so I can get some space to figure out what it is I'm meant to be doing, what it is that I'm passionate about, what it is that I would wake up every morning and do, even if I wasn't getting paid for it. Because if you can answer that question and you can figure out how to do that while getting paid, then you haven't made.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's where I went. And then I spent a lot of time thinking about it, a lot of time thinking about what I loved and what I really, really enjoyed was learning about media buying, advertising, marketing. That I found very, very interesting. Spent a lot of time trying to get clients, which is not very easy when you're starting your first business. I remember my wife got pregnant at the same time that I quit my job, as it happens. And I remember my wife goes into labor. We actually got induced, so we're in the hospital. At the time, I had one client, and the client was paying, I think it was $3,000 a month. So it was good, right? It was like, okay, I can live off of this. Like, I can pay my rent basically. Right. So I'm making $3,000, but I couldn't imagine, like, we're there, and I just couldn't imagine like that was going to address my life. I'd spent 3 or 4 months just finding that one client, and I was kind of giving up on belief. I remember sitting there. My wife had just given birth. My daughter was in the NICU. So we were just kind of sitting there, and I was on a phone doing a phone interview for 911 dispatch. Yeah. Thinking that I was going to have to go back and get a full-time job because I just had the one client. And I remember getting off of that phone. I remember 2 more days, my baby girl's still in NICU. We finally gather everything and we get home, and I got the call back that I got this job. And I remember just sitting there going, what's the fucking difference? Right? Now I have a kid, and now I'm going to sell all of my time now. And I'm going to go back to what I was not happy at before. It was just me and my wife. And now I have a kid. Like, I can't do that. To me, that's not being a father. That's not being responsible. I don't think making dollars is a responsibility of a father.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.